Hello and welcome back to the Rossi Brothers Sports Podcast. My name is John, joined as always by my brother Adam. Great start, but it's going to be an even better start because today is a very, very special, amazing day. It is a podcast. It is a celebration podcast. What are we celebrating, you might ask? Well, we are celebrating the champion of the 2021-22 Rossi Brothers Bowl Bash extravaganza. So without further ado, I introduce to you our champion, Laura Zitelli. Woo!
Hey, Laura.
Hey, everybody. It's nice to see you too.
Yeah, welcome to the podcast. Congratulations.
Thank
Mucho
you.
congratulations.
I was going to say.
Yes. You know, I really, when I got that email from you both, I was like, I want to win this. So I worked really hard and I researched all the teams and I picked who I thought was going to win each game. And I can't say that I watched any of them, but I did. I wanted to be on this podcast, so I worked hard. You know, I did my homework. So, but you know what? I thought that Alabama was going to win the whole thing. And Georgia pulled out a win this year. So I was happy for Georgia,
your home state,
but also sad, you know, for like my pick for this bowl bash, but I still ended up winning. So it was all okay.
Yeah. I mean, you picked a lot of right ones there, man. I'm recalling a story that hopefully my aunt, your mother, wouldn't mind sharing. That my mother, your aunt, once told me of a certain Burl High School gym class when your mom tucked the basketball under her arm and sprinted down court and spiked the basketball at the baseline, saying touchdown.
Nice.
And I think at that moment that Aunt Kathy didn't foresee her daughter being featured as the champion on a sports podcast, but alas, here you are. So congratulations.
You know, we've come a long way.
Exactly.
We've come a long way, and you know, I'm here for it. So yeah.
Wow. This is cool. It's a special moment.
Yeah. Do you have any? So you did your research, which wow, impressive. Was there any stat or something in particular you were looking for? I'm asking, also thinking of a particular friend of our sisters who very much wants to also be a champion, who I've had multiple discussions with. So not to you're free to maintain your secrets as secrets, but if you will divulge maybe something in particular you're really looking for, that you're like, aha, this is what I'm keying onto when making these picks.
Yeah, so this is so fun. So I want other people to experience this as well. So I'm happy to share my wisdom in all of this. And so I went on to I Googled each team and I looked at their, like, is it called the spread? Like how many things they've won, how many things they've lost.
Oh,
their record.
Their record.
Yeah.
I looked at their record, and for the most part, I picked the team that had the better record to be the one that won.
Okay.
But there were some teams that I'd never heard of before, and I thought, well, I'm not going to pick them. So I picked the other team. So really it's luck, but I think that you could probably do even more research than what I did and have a better outcome. I bet you could Google like each bowl game too and see what like the pros are saying about who's going to win and just pick those.
The Google has become that powerful. You can probably do that. But
I was gonna say though, I don't know if that always works out for people.
Yeah. I bet a lot of people do that.
Yeah, you could probably take a lot of the pros and line up their picks against yours, Laura, and you would have beaten them had they entered the Rossi Brothers Bowl Bash. So.
Oh, well, what's your?
I'm not saying. I'm just saying.
What's Cecilia's friend's name?
Oh, shout outs Ian Schoenman, Dr.
Ian.
Dr.
I met
Dr.
him.
Yeah,
I
you
met
have
him
met
at her graduation or at her match day. Okay, Ian, I'm talking to you. You can do it. I believe in you. You can get you can be the winner, and you can be on this podcast Sunday.
This could be you.
All right.
Yeah. Wow.
We officially believe in you again.
Man, I'd say, wow, Laura, don't downplay, your skill, I think, in selecting these, because what I'm hearing is that's like you have a multi-step process. You're looking at that record, but then you're also looking at that name recognition and kind of balancing those two. That might be, a thing to our listeners too. In other words, there's not just one thing you look at, but you kind of balance these multiple factors and make a decision based on that. And also, I'd say, what do we have, John? I thought I had close to 40 people registered in the Rossi Brothers Bowl Bash this year. So that's a few people that you beat out there. Your name rose to the top. Laura Zitelli. Well done.
Thank you.
Nice. Well, again, congratulations. And so as you obviously know, and as other people listening to this hopefully know, your part of your prize of winning the Bowl Bash is getting to guide this episode for us. So if you would like, Laura, to introduce sort of your topic for this episode and maybe a little bit of why you chose that.
Oh yeah, thanks. So something about me is that I'm a musician, and I've been a musician my entire life, and I grew up with musical parents, and as you all know, musical family, because you both are musical. And
we try.
Yeah.
Not quite the same level.
Well, it doesn't matter. You guys both have a good appreciation of music, I'll say, and understanding of it. And so I think it's important to mention that.
I'm much more of an appreciator than a producer. I do enjoy the appreciation.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we're really good appreciators. That's what we can say.
Yeah.
Top level appreciators.
And as a performing musician, we need people like you to play for. So
I will always be appreciative of Laura Zitelli.
Thanks.
And that Navy band.
Yes, so I play clarinet in the Navy band. And before that, though, I was in school, and all through like high school and college, like the association that I have to football and bowl games is the marching band. So I thought it would be interesting to kind of just talk about why marching band is a thing, and our favorite memories. Because Adam, you also got to march in college and high school, right?
Not in high school, actually.
Oh,
yeah, it's just a 4-year excitement there in college. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, and
John
it's a fun.
I was gonna say
John
the joy of the tiny high school marching band experience was reserved for me between the two of us.
Nice. Yeah. So that's what this episode's about, everybody. It's about marching band.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to this. I think it's
we
a
learn
great selection.
what it means to be in a marching band.
Mayonnaise
I was gonna say, but before I get like too into it, have you seen the Band Geeks episode of SpongeBob, Laura?
No.
Oh, okay. That was like maybe my earliest and still one of my like strongest associations with marching bands in general. Is that episode of SpongeBob.
It's quite worthy association.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you have the opportunity in the future, definitely give it a watch.
I'm writing it down right now. I'll watch it later.
Great. Also, John and I have seasons 1 and 2 on DVD, and I believe it's in one of those 2 seasons. If you ever want to borrow.
Oh,
yeah, I think so.
I might take you up on that.
I can get it to you.
Yeah.
Might be in Frostburg, the DVD.
Probably.
But
I'm closer to Frostburg than to either of you guys.
That's true.
So.
Yeah. Just drive on over there.
Yeah. Nice.
I think our parents have a DVD player too. Just drive on over for a little SpongeBob watching session. Mm-hmm. I'm sure they would love that. Mom especially.
Yeah, they actually would.
For sure.
All right.
Hello, great to see you. Let's watch SpongeBob.
Okay, so as you just introduced for us, Laura, we want to start with a little bit of history of the marching band, and its relation to sports, college football in particular. All right, so two words go into marching band. Obviously, band, people playing music collectively. I don't know if that's the correct definition for band, but it's a working definition for band. But marching, moving in unison with the beat, where does that come from? Well, it seems like the early roots of marching bands are military in origin specifically. So, the early evidence of various militaristic bands way back into, the Dark Ages. But roughly, the way I guess people used to fight back in the day involved being in your ranks and a little rat-a-tat-tat on the drums, everyone marching together in unison in your sort of rank and file. Like that's, very militaristic in origin, I guess. And in particular, right, us being Americans, I feel like I was taught in school that like one of the things about, the very early skirmishes of the Revolutionary War was like the British were in their red coats and like marching with a drum through like these New England woods. And then like, I don't know how romanticized and like accurate all this is. But like, your little farmers, it was very easy to see them like hiding behind trees and stuff.
And you could probably
anyway,
hear them too.
Yeah, I was gonna say like they stand out a lot in the woodsy wilderness of the early United States, I guess. But anyway, and the way that the reason to bring that back around though is because we were taught like, oh, like that was the way that people like fought, is they like marched in that way.
Right.
So very
so
long,
much of a sneak attack.
Yeah, exactly.
Surprise, we're here. Announced with drums and bugles.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I mean, if you had a better drummer, I guess it would mean that you, but apparently, right, like that was like one of the most important stations in like a unit was like the drummer. Because if you didn't have that like beat, everyone else, they're like training, they weren't trained to be able to do it without that.
How would they get anywhere? Because that's how
I don't know.
That's how they moved. They marched, right?
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. You can't march not in unison, I guess.
Right.
Exactly. Otherwise, there's not
marching.
Yeah.
I was also I'm curious as to whether obviously I don't have an experience in this matter, but if like even like during battle, if it was if information was communicated via drum or bugle or some type of instrument or musical device. I don't know.
That's a good question. Yeah, particularly, because I feel like I don't know, I'm thinking of like Lord of the Rings now. But like if you have like the Sauron's army like on one side, and then you have like the elves and these other people over here.
Never seen
Lord of the Rings, wait, like these reinforcements are arriving, like what is announcing them? They're playing this like really loud horn, right? Like like that, announcing their arrival thing or whatever, which clearly is meant to communicate, hey, we're here. So like in the real world, instead of Lord of the Rings, maybe people actually did similar things of like
it would make sense that you need a bugle for that too, because like a drum, at least by the time, I mean, that's one thing I saw was like military bands go way back to, like you said, the Dark Ages. But by the time people had guns, like Revolutionary War times, I feel like during battle, if people are shooting guns, a drum isn't going to stand out very much because it's going to sound like gunfire. but a bugle, I would
true.
say, is easily discernible from gunfire.
Yeah.
And even I think a fife predates a bugle. It's like a tiny little,
Oh.
a fife is like a piccolo, but just a little
Right.
different. Tiny little fife would play really high notes. And so
Aha.
maybe that's like a communication thing. I don't know.
Right.
Maybe
Is it
anyone
the-
who's listening to this who's like really into history, you guys can let John and Adam know what you find
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, reach out, hit us up, let us.
Yeah, the
Inform
high
us.
frequency though, that makes a lot of sense also with
Mhm.
the fife.
Yeah, like a flute. I couldn't imagine like a modern day flute would stand out very much like during a battle because it's not that piercing. You need that fife.
Well, so
Yeah.
anyway, all of that is to say, military bands were a thing for a long time, and that was sort of the like original marching band in some ways, like because they were a group of people marching. The point wasn't really so much to be a band, but you have that sort of factor in it, and then you know, sort of later on in history, there would be bands, I guess, that were part of the military that were intended to be bands that weren't just like using music for the sake of fighting, which, yeah, so you have bands including the Marine Corps band, which was headed by John Philip Sousa. For those who don't know, that's an important name.
Heard of him.
Yeah, lots of marches.
I've heard of those.
He's known
Very
as the
influential.
March King.
Yeah.
So that's what he's known as.
Dude,
Yes.
King of the March.
Yep.
So
Is his phone named after him? The
His
Sousa
phone?
phone? The Sousa phone?
Oh,
Is that
yeah, I would
John
imagine
Phillips?
that's
so.
my
Yep.
understanding. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know if he invented it or like was influential in the creation of the sousaphone.
I don't know, but
Or
I
if it's-
can.
You have an instrument named after you.
I was gonna say my impression was
You've
more
made
so that it was like in honor of him being so influential for like marching. But I could be wrong.
So
Either way,
here you go.
that's pretty big.
Do you want the answer?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Okay.
Please.
John Philip Sousa, the famous American conductor and composer of many marching tunes, came up with the idea for a sousaphone. An instrument manufacturer completed it as a special order in 1890. And
Uh-huh.
it makes sense because he was writing a lot of marches and it's hard to carry a tuba. So he probably, invented it so that his tuba
Okay.
players wouldn't be mad at him.
Boom.
It's a good call. The
Hooray.
smart band director move.
Yes. Hooray, John Philip Sousa.
Yeah.
Tubas across the world. Thank you to this day. If they're not, they should be.
Yeah.
I also like the fact that Sousa is close to like Dr. Seuss in title. And like I can picture Dr. Seuss drawings of like sousaphones on steroids, basically, like having like multiple wraps around the like little humanoid person, and like the part that goes up to your mouth, that would be the mouthpiece. But like the part that goes up to the mouthpiece, like getting wide and then like short again, then wide, then short, and then like there's the mouthpiece. It's like
Yeah.
I don't know if that would like work in terms of like physics and the way the world works, but it's pretty cool. And yeah, Dr. Seuss, like maybe he does the sousaphone.
I was gonna say like concentric bells.
Yes.
Right? So like instead of just having the one bell, there's like
right.
Yeah,
Multiple
exactly, like
bells.
multiple nested bells within each other.
That's pretty amazing. Yes.
I'm pretty certain that would not work in terms of physics.
Yeah.
I don't know. You probably know better than I would, Laura.
That would be an episode unto itself, is to like just break down the nuances of the different musical instruments that Dr. Seuss features in his
like
his
fake
works.
cartoon instruments.
Yeah, like even just in How the Grinch Stole Christmas, like in the scenes with whatever you call those people that live in that town,
The Who's down in Whoville.
the Who's down Whoville. Yeah, they have some pretty cool looking instruments, I must say. There's some
Well,
pretty cool looking everything,
Indeed.
but
I
instruments
do
included.
have to tell you that there are a lot of weird brass instruments out there, like
okay.
double-belled trumpets or
No
cornets or
way.
Oh,
euphoniums.
that's a thing?
Yeah,
I
that's a
was
thing.
unaware.
I
Wow.
don't know more about them, but I just Googled a picture. I guess I
Okay.
can't share it.
Ooh,
I don't think I guess I could put it in the chat. Well,
Ooh.
anyway,
okay.
yeah, there's
Okay.
like a lot of, it's like a thing. So anyway,
Wow.
I don't know what they're used for. Maybe brass bands.
Wow.
So
Dr.
Okay.
Seuss band should be a thing. They should have bands dedicated to Dr. Seuss and his works. They could just perform. Yes, they could put Dr. Seuss works to music. It's brilliant.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what it should be. Great.
Indeed.
Anyway, John Phillips.
Anyway, so
if this
okay.
podcast thing doesn't work out, Adam, you can get into
That-
productions.
It's probably going to be
For-
it. Seussical the musical. We should
You-
play Seussical the musical on different Seuss-esque instruments.
Yeah.
That's the thing, man. That would be the ultimate.
You could do it, I think. So anyway, not to lose the thread too much.
Right.
So
John Phillips.
John Philip Sousa, really, in some ways, popularizes and revolutionized. Very influential, right, in marching bands being a thing, and being, more popular, I guess, in the time he was alive, which, as we were saying, is in the 1800s, getting into the later 1800s. And yeah, in the end of that 1800s, 19th century, a lot of people in various places were, parts of, local or otherwise, small bands all together, including at this point now in some colleges and or universities. Particularly, it seems like Notre Dame has a claim to the oldest school marching band. There's some lack of clarity or maybe ambiguity from the, in some ways, limited amount of research that we have done as to them versus a couple other schools, also kind of Midwestern schools, having some claims to that. It seems like Notre Dame has the oldest claim to it, but also in some places, a game in 1907 between Illinois and University of Chicago is cited as the first playing of marching bands at a football game. We're unclear if that's performing on the field, doing a halftime show per se. So there could be some worthwhile distinctions there, which I don't have on hand.
My guess is that if Notre Dame said they played the first football game against Michigan in 1887, that they were there. But Illinois' claim is that they were marching on the field, that's my guess. I'm not sure. It'd be interesting to know. Yeah, if anyone has a dissertation out there that want to share that information, I'd love to find out.
Indeed.
Well, something that can tie the two things, a couple of things we've been talking about together here, is that Sousa wrote the University of Illinois March, which I believe is performed in their pregame every week. So it would kind of make sense if they were the first ones to put on a floor show or a show on the field.
Right.
So.
I did not know that.
Okay. Yeah.
Fun stuff.
This is why we need you here, Laura, because you actually have knowledge in this field. Some evidence to the different levels of knowledge here. Anyway,
do you know, Laura, did he go to Illinois or was he a professor there?
I don't know about that. He was like you mentioned, John, he was commander of the of the Marine Band, but he did spend time with the Navy Band Great Lakes in Great Lakes, Illinois, which is close enough, to University of Illinois. And so I don't know if it was during that time that he wrote the march, or maybe was there studying, or was there, mentoring. I don't know, but
Gotcha.
This is all stuff I'm going to research later now because I'm interested to know.
Yeah. We can like make an addendum or something later.
The thirst for knowledge is real.
Yeah. Anyway, I did also find one other thing that I believe the Purdue, I think they're called the Great American Band is like their marching band's name. But they have the claim to the first like not strictly in ranks formation on a field. That also like sometime around this time, probably a little bit later, they had the idea to arrange themselves in the form of a P on the field for Purdue.
They also have the claim to the largest drum.
Yes.
On the field, apparently.
Yeah. So they're, in that time period, sort of the beginning of this real intermingling of the marching band and the football game, which would then grow vastly in popularity. One thing that we saw cited is sort of following World War I. So going into like the late 19-teens, 1920s, a lot of people were returning from military service, some of them musicians, soldiers, who then went to universities and had some experience with marching bands in the military aspect, merged that again with the college university experience. And yeah, so then it just seems like this thing kind of kept on growing over, a series of years into more of what like modern day marching band performance is essentially. There, I guess one other landmark on the map is 1971 was the formation of the Drum Corps International. So
UCI baby.
In addition to just like, college, university, like having marching bands, the concept of a drum corps is also a thing. Maybe you can illuminate the distinction best, Laura. I don't know too well.
So a drum corps, one of the big differences between a drum corps and a marching band is that now you can have woodwinds in a marching band, but in a drum corps, you just have brass and percussion.
Okay.
I think back in the day, marching bands were just brass players, but as time has gone on, for at least the past 50 or 60 years, woodwinds have been in marching band. So DCI is more of a competitive, like the people who are in those groups like spend all summer working on them, on the show, and go to all these different competitions, and you will go all the way up to like grand national competitions and things like that. And so that's more of like a really intense hobby. And in my mind, college marching band is more of like a social event, cheering the team on and things like that. So,
yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, but there are some marching bands, by that definition, there's some college marching bands that are actually drum corps. For example, I think Ohio State only has brass and percussion. I don't think they have any woodwinds in their band.
Really?
There might be a few others like that. I'm pretty sure it's
maybe.
Could be wrong.
I don't know. Yeah.
Interesting. I would not have thought that. Maybe I can do some quick Googling. Anyway, but yeah, so that, more or less takes us to kind of modern day marching. There are some, changes also that occurred. one of the things I was reading was talking about originally like in DCI and like drum corps, and again, like you're saying, can be more competitive in their like bylaws or rules or whatever. They like didn't allow anything that wasn't specifically marching, but then they changed to allow for some stationary instruments in like a pit. So then having your like pit percussion and other instrumentation too, not necessarily just percussion, also is sometimes a thing, depending on the band and what style they're like going for, I guess. But yeah, so there have been changes and innovations throughout those years that I'm kind of glossing over. But yeah, roughly that's kind of a broad history of marching band.
Man, that's great history, John. And man, I'm just thinking about you mentioned at the end there, these pits becoming a thing and kind of this ever broadening scope of what a marching band performance could be. And my mind goes to watching you, Laura, and then later on Mary, playing at these Bands of America BOA festivals, where it was truly a performance. That was my first delve into and these are high school marching bands that are putting on a show, and they are putting on a show. Some of it even, like I went to this Shakespeare theater last week, and I'm almost reminded of they're like theatrical pieces to some of these band shows in Bands of America. Super impressive. Super impressive. And like you said, Laura, like drum corps versus college marching band. Like I was lucky enough to be in a college marching band and saw a lot of other college marching bands while I was in that marching band, and doesn't even begin to compare to what I saw from many of these high school marching bands in Band of America performances. It was pretty impressive. But you're talking all these different instruments in the pit, and color guard doing all these different performance type things, and having swords and masks and different stuff. And yeah, it's the thing. And these pieces that are like 10-15 minutes long, like one piece. I'm like, wow,
yeah,
that's intense. Yeah. But yeah,
and like played with like very like dynamic range and like different musicality, to put one very broad term on all of it. Yeah, which
it's a fun world out there, marching band.
I was gonna say, I will just note before we go further that I, in preparation for this, have been watching a number of videos of marching bands. And I think it's a little bit unfortunate that being able to record a band outside as they're like performing in a stadium, usually what you hear is kind of piercing brass along with like most of the percussion, and like that's the primary sound. Like it's definitely, recording a marching band as they're playing outside is a lot different than I think hearing one. Anyway, I just want to complain about that for a second. My headphones made me not as happy. I was like, man, I wish I want to hear this differently than it sounds.
Well, maybe that's part of the magic, to fully experience the marching band is, it takes a little more effort. You got to go there in person, and you got to be at the performance to get the full effect, as with many things in life. But let me be the maybe not first, but 32nd to tell you that it is worth it to do that and go there and witness the marching band, or drum corps, as it may be.
Yes.
But for college marching band specifically, though, being there, being in that environment, I feel like it does have to be experienced in person in a lot of ways. And lo and behold, what is this? Both Laura and Adam, you both have direct experience with this, given that you were both members of your university marching bands. So again, like you mentioned at the top, we wanted to see if you guys have, a few marching band stories, some fun memories, or other things of the sort to share. So I don't know if either of you wants to go first. I, having only participated in a high school marching band for like 2 years, don't have as much to go with here. So I'll definitely let one of you guys start it off if you want.
Well, I'll say that, I have college, but not high school experience. John, you have high school, but not college experience. Laura has both. So maybe Laura, if you want to start us off and talk about one or the other or both. You also have, of course, drum major experience. Both pretty cool.
Indeed.
And then, why don't you start us off?
All right. Well, I went to the University. You guys know this, but I went to the University of South Carolina, and I was in their marching band. Yeah, go Gamecocks. When I was there, I should put this disclosure out there. When I was there, the football team was very good. It was a really good football team.
The old ball coach.
Yeah,
Indeed.
He's gone. And so we got to go to a lot of cool, because the football team was so good. We got to go to the SEC championship. We got to go to fun bowl games and things like that. Recently, it hasn't been that strong of a team, but I am hopeful for them. They'll come, they'll pull back, all those kids in the marching band, they'll get to experience what I got to experience. Anyway, one of the coolest things I think for like the first college game that I was performing in is that, those college football fields, like not everybody gets to go down there. You have it's very limited access. You're going down and like they don't let the student, at least at South Carolina, they never let the students rush the field at the end. I know they do that at Kentucky, but they didn't do that at South Carolina. And just things like that. And you had to be like in a club or a group or something like that to go down on the field. And that was just so cool to be like down there. So that's one of my like early memories of marching band in college. Is it wasn't like high school in that anybody could just go and like there's just no access to getting down there besides being like in the band or being one of the cheerleaders. So that was kind of a cool thing to experience.
Yeah.
Pretty cool privilege.
I remember.
And, yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say also, it kind of felt like we were some of the biggest cheerleaders for the team. I mean, I know that there are actual cheerleaders, but when you're up in the stands and you play a first down tune or something and things like that, like the crowd knows what's going on. It was just cool to be a part of like that excitement during the game.
Yeah,
and then
indeed. There's a couple thoughts I had. The first one being, you're right in that it's a limited rarefied air, because I don't think I have ever actually been on the like field playing surface of a college Division I like FBS football field. I remember when I was very young, like probably 5 years old, and Adam and our mom, she also was a member of the Pride of West Virginia Mountaineer Marching Band, and would sometimes go back to play during homecoming at as part of the alumni band. And when I was still, like I said, a very like little kid, we got to be like behind the end zone on the like field level because we were with our mom and she was marching on the field at the time. And that was like the closest I've ever been, by my recollection, and haven't, even gotten back on that same level, let alone on the actual field since. So, especially someone like me, that seems like, oh, that'd be a cool experience to be like down in the stadium, because I've only ever been up in the stands, like looking around to see things. Yeah, so very noteworthy. The other thing you're saying about like cheering for the team, maybe one thing to also add to that is that oftentimes, maybe if a game isn't going as well or something, which I guess, like you're saying, South Carolina was very good while you were there, so probably wasn't your experience too frequently. But I imagine there are plenty of times that either the game conditions or the actual game itself would be less than ideal, and a lot of fans may not want to be sticking around or being as active if
Oh
your
yeah.
team is down by like 40 points in the fourth quarter. But the
Mhm.
band is still around and still doing their thing. And so I feel like there's a certain, yeah, like you're saying, like really, big fans, large cheerleading aspect to it.
Mhm.
That's sort of just built into the experience, maybe.
Yep. Yeah, Adam, what did you experience at WVU?
Well, speaking to your being on the field, that's pretty cool. And I grew up. This might be a shock to many of our listeners, but I grew up being a big sports fan. I watched West Virginia games on TV for years, and then here I am finding myself in the marching band on the same field as the same team that I saw. And in my freshman year, they had, I guess, a lot of their starters were guys that had been there for a few years. So the people that I'd watched on TV the previous year or two, and then I was there, and I think when you see people on TV, especially when you're such a big fan, you kind of, it's easy to idolize people and to kind of make them bigger than life, And I definitely, there are a lot of things I remember about my first ever game. But one thing I remember is being so close to players is like, oh, I mean, this is true and it's not true. I'm thinking like, they're just another person like me, like college student. That's not true in the sense that like, well, they're way more athletic than me, and their college experience, because they're an athlete, is way different than my college experience. So I recognize that there's a huge difference there. But there's also a lot that's similar, and yeah, like there's a lot that's the same about both of us, and we are at the end of the day college students, the same university, and like the same age approximately, and yeah, they have the same, a lot of the same thoughts and feelings and emotions and whatever that you're right, just because you happen to be on TV a lot doesn't make you any less or more human than the rest of us. So I remember that being kind of eye-opening, my first time there on Mountaineer Field.
Did you ever experience? Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Mine was slightly non sequitur, but not completely non sequitur. But were you going to talk about college stuff? I had a high school.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want me to go do my college thing and then pass it back over to you? Okay. So did you ever experience, as you were either marching into the stadium or out of the stadium, fans from either the Mountaineer fans or whoever you were playing take out their excitement or anger on the band? Did that ever happen to you? Or did you ever remember any of that?
Yeah, it sounds like maybe you have a story about this, so I would want to hear. Let's see, anger. There are a lot of WVU fans that love the band, and I was thankful for that. It was there was definitely like a band kid thing. Like I think when I was at West Virginia, it wasn't necessarily cool to be in the band. I think oftentimes like 5 days out of the week, there's like kind of like a band, maybe, and I didn't experience this much in high school. We didn't have a high school band, but there's kind of this like, I don't know, high schools seem in my mind, there's like a lot of like cliques in them. You have like the band kids and the theater kids and the jocks and like whatever. So, and it seemed like a little bit that continued into college a little bit, like, oh, you're a band kid. So it wasn't like that cool to like tell someone that 5 days out of the week. But on Saturdays, man, you were cool as heck. And especially to like, maybe not necessarily your fellow students. There are a lot of fellow students that I think were pretty cool, but especially just like the fans, like in the parking lot, like we'd have a mini band and we'd go around to the different like tailgates in the parking lot, just like play a few like stand tunes, and people would just go nuts. And you didn't have to be necessarily, it didn't have to be the best performance, and people like, you probably could have played Twinkle Twinkle Little Star and it would have been like, whoa, it's amazing, so that's pretty cool to see that, like, yeah. And that's like before the game is played, just like everyone's in a good mood. Everyone's like, yeah, we're gonna win by 40 points today. So that was cool, let's see. I'm thinking of the opposite, people taking out their anger. And man, it's been a while, man. I'm getting old since I've been in the old marching band. I do recall a game or two against one University of Maryland, and which is kind of a border rivalry there. And yeah, as I recall, I think it was the game that this is interesting. There's a very long history here. When I was like little, like elementary school, I think the year was 2000, maybe it was 2001. But me and several of our family members connected to both Maryland and West Virginia went to the Maryland West Virginia game in Morgantown, and West Virginia won. And I remember after the game, walking back to, I think it was when our cousin was in the WVU marching band, and we were walking back, I think maybe to his like dorm or apartment, something after the game to like have a little hooray party or whatever. And there were some West Virginia fans. So we were walking with our family members that were Maryland people and wearing Maryland stuff. Mm-hmm. And some West Virginia fans, looking back on it, I didn't know what a frat guy was at the time, but they might have been like frat guys, like came up to our Maryland family members and kind of started like talking trash on them, like as we're walking back to wherever. Yeah. And man, I love my mom. She got right in their face. She was like, get the heck away from here. Like, you aren't cool. You aren't representative of you. Like, get the heck out of here. And I was like, good for you, Mom. But so fast forward like 15 years or whatever to when I am in marching band. And I think it was when we played at in Baltimore. We played Maryland. It was a Maryland home game, but they played in the Raven Stadium. It's my junior year. And it was a little history. One part of the history was West Virginia had beaten Maryland many years in a row at this point, and definitely did not happen that day. Maryland won 37-0, as I recall, complete blowout. I think it kind of rained for some of the game. It was kind of miserable as a West Virginia fan for a few reasons, but number one being that, we might have had under 100 yards of offense. It was pretty awful game. But yeah, just complete annihilation. Maryland wins pretty easily. But after the game, we were walking out of the stadium, and our band's pretty big, like 300 plus people in it. So I wasn't like at the front to see this, but apparently there was some like altercation between a GA, like one of our grad assistants, and some Maryland fans. Like, I think the story I heard, of course, is pretty bad. It's kind of in the marching band, but like some people kind of like came at him and were pretty like rude to him after the game. Kind of the opposite of what happened 15 years before in Morgantown. And I don't know exactly what happened there, but I remember on the Bud Light, a lot of people talking about, did you see what they did? No. But anyway, that's the first memory that comes to mind. But I mean, I think too, like, I hate to see people there have been many instances as a West Virginia fan where I have been honestly ashamed of the way people that wear the gold and blue, have acted. And I think, man, 99% of West Virginia fans, I think, are legitimately pretty cool people. And, but man, when you're a jerk like that, it really looks badly or reflects badly upon the rest of the fan base, the whole institution. And that just is pretty shameful feeling on my part. So I guess I say that to see, like, I don't mean to say that like, oh, Maryland fans are terrible. Any fan base, I think 99% of the fans are pretty cool. And there's always that 1% that are just jerks for whatever reason. But, such is life. But I'd be interested to hear, you haven't asked me that question. Do you have any experience of one or the other?
Oh, yes. Well, of both. Yeah. So I'm not going to say anything about it or call out any other teams, because just as you said, I know South Carolina fans, I've seen South Carolina fans be just as mean or even meaner than what I've seen from other, SEC teams. But yeah, it was kind of like I remember a couple times, it wasn't necessarily scary, but it was like, we would have, they would like block off the street so we could get back to the buses in time, to make sure that people didn't come running through the band or things like that. And I always thought it was really funny because whether we won or lost, whether the team won or lost, depending on, which way it went, the fans from the opposite team could get either really nasty like in your face, like, oh, haha, we won and stuff like that. And I always thought that was really funny because they didn't do anything to win the game, and I didn't do anything to win the game. And I just always thought it was funny. And one time someone said, like, I think it was after a game or something, and someone came up and was like, hey, good game, but you guys lost. And I said, well, I didn't play. Just like that. And they just kind of laughed and walked away. But I always think that's kind of funny because the band's sort of like the face of the student body in a way sometimes. And so some of like the former students, or it was usually older people that would come up and do stuff like that. But I don't know, they just wanted to rub it in or something, and they picked the band to do it too. So yeah,
it's a shame. I also am reminded of my junior year, that same year that we got annihilated by Maryland. We weren't very good, and one evidence, the fact we weren't very good, is we didn't make a bowl game that year. And it's kind of sad. I feel like at one point in the college football world, like it was actually an achievement to make a bowl game, and now it's like the opposite. It's like really bad if you don't make a bowl game, which is, I could go on for a long time about how that is a shame. But that year, I remember like several people in band being like very upset that, we didn't get to go to a bowl game, and kind of this almost like, I don't want to say privilege, that's not the right word, but like this attitude of like, oh, come on, like we should be able to get to do this, like we earned this kind of like, and I remember thinking like, no, you didn't. Like you, like people being very upset at the football team. Like, well, anytime we've gone to a bowl game in the past, or we've gone on any road trip or whatever, like we exist because of the football team. Like we're not, and yeah, I'm sure it's fair to criticize college football and athletics for many reasons, but as a member of the band, I think it's silly to think that there's any, to criticize the team for like poor performance because, oh, you should be able to go and perform at this game or whatever. Well, no, you get to perform at the game because there's a game going on there.
Yeah,
he was playing there. So that was always frustrating to me when people would like be really mad at our own team. Like, dude, like that's like you said, like we're there to support. Like that's not.
Yep.
It's not the idea. What do you think? Oh, sorry, we've talked about college a lot. I want to briefly touch on one experience I haven't had that both you guys had, and I think you've had very different experiences, is high school marching band. And Laura, you have the privilege of comparing the high school experience to the college experience. So talk a little bit about the high school band and what that was like, and maybe comparisons to the college experience.
Yeah, so high school band was also really, really fun. It definitely was different though than college marching band. There was a lot more like a competitive aspect, at least in my high school, because in addition to playing at football games for halftime shows, we would also go to one or two competitions every year, marching band competitions kind of locally in the area. And so there was a lot more of making sure that our drill was really, really solid, and making sure, rehearsing the same show the entire year versus in college marching band. Usually every week or every other week, you're playing a new show just as a form of entertainment. So that was a little bit different. Then some similarities though is that you have this like sense of community. It's the same, you're out there with your student friends, and you're just working hard, whether you're in college or high school, to learn a show and to perform it and everything like that. So the social aspect of it, I think, was about the same. And yeah, the overall, just like, we're here to support the team, that was a pretty big thing in high school as well. So the main difference for us was that we would do competitions in addition to just playing at halftime. And that was a little bit more serious. It made it a little bit more serious than just doing what we did in college. What did you experience, John?
I think it would be difficult to find a marching band experience farther from yours.
Okay.
On the high school level. Again, as Adam mentioned, I was able to watch your high school band perform, and I cannot echo enough like how impressive it is. I probably can't underscore enough how unimpressive our marching band was. Starting with the fact that one of the cool things about marching bands is the marching band uniform. Like you get to wear the like cool fancy looking outfit, which can be really hot a lot of the time, but like from the external observer, it's like, oh, that looks cool and like it looks legit. Our high school marching band's uniforms consisted of like sweats, essentially. They're like athletic sweats and like jackets that were all matching, but we didn't have like, you know, hats with plumes, and they weren't like the like cool looking, like I feel like they kind of have like a vest type of situation that happens with a lot of like marching band jackets, or something, or they'll have like, you know, big buttons or whatever it is, cool like shoulder things. None of that. Is just like a windbreaker essentially. And there were like 25 of us the like couple of years that we tried to have it be a thing, and like not that many of us are particularly great at playing music, especially not while marching or at marching for that matter. We were pretty terrible, all things considered. So it was like fun in terms of getting to like hang out with other people, and like band camp in the summer was pretty fun.
Yeah.
The actual like marching band experience was pretty pitiful. Yeah,
but you were there.
We're talking levels of like, we spent an entire year and we're still unable to get like roughly 50% of the band to go on one on their left foot instead of their right foot, which like is pretty darn basic. And also at that point it's like, well, what are we supposed to do if it's like, you know, only half of your band's doing it anyway? Like it's not like you have 80% of the people who are all in sync and then like some of the people are out of sync. It's like you can't even tell from the outside if you're watching whether it's supposed to be synchronized or not. Like it's below a certain threshold of synchronization where it doesn't matter. Yeah, so that was my experience. It was fun. You know, yeah, it was our saxophone section. We were great. We were a wonderful unit. So shout outs to all of them.
Straight sexes.
Anyway.
Nice.
That's so amazing to hear. Like it sounds like when I was at the illustrious Bishop Walsh High School, it seemed like, yeah, we didn't have a marching band. We had a concert band. I don't know if we were a concert band or jazz band at that point. I don't even remember. When I was first there was a jazz band. Then it became a concert band. Then it became a marching band after my time. But yeah, I feel like basically the marching band was just put on the, like they took the concert band, just put it on the field for the marching band. Because yeah, my experience in concert band was like very similar in the sense that like counting like to 4 was decidedly not a strong suit of the band, which I would say is like probably not probably. I think that's pretty essential. It's pretty important baseline to achieve, and we just weren't there. Okay, and I particularly remember that. Oh man, it was good times. Good times. I particularly remember a certain. I sat. So I think the first year it was a jazz band, and I was supposed to play saxophone because I had played like flute and piccolo up till up through 8th grade, because I had a concert band. But then in high school, we don't have a concert band, we have a jazz band. So like you have to learn a jazz instrument. So saxophone has roughly the same fingers as flute. So you should play saxophone.
Yeah.
So I play with quotation marks, air quotes, saxophone. But then, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's then the second year, I'm pretty sure I went to flute second year. And then I played bass guitar. I'm not sure both junior and senior year or just senior. I forget in what. I definitely played bass guitar one year. I think I forget. I played 3 instruments in different years. And so I was playing bass guitar this particular year, and I was kind of sitting in the back where like the low brass is. And the reason I was playing bass guitar is because our low brass consisted of maybe like 1 tuba and 1 trombone plus me. And I remember this one dude saying like, yo, I can play the entire song, like not only the entire song, I can play all of our songs in the first position on the trombone. And I don't know anything about trombone. Like I don't, yeah, I don't know anything about it. I remember being pretty skeptical that this was the case. Also because, yeah, several notes that were being played were probably like less than what was written on the page, or not exactly what was written on the page, which I'm also guilty of. Like, I'm not a great musician by any means. Like, I swear to this day, I was the very last piccolo to make the Western New Marching Band. But yeah, I think many, and yeah, I've been in a lot of situations where like, yeah, there are notes that I or other people around me don't know. And typically, as I was told, you know, when in doubt, leave it out, especially in a large band, because like other people can like cover for you.
Sure.
But this particular individual did not subscribe to this at all. It was like quite the opposite. It was like, when in doubt, play as loud as you possibly can.
Be as confident as you can, and people will think it's right.
Oh my gosh. And it was like, it was something. It was, I kind of picture the SpongeBob episode wherever
this is the same episode.
No, maybe this is the same episode. I'm thinking of the episode wherever it's the opposite day, and SpongeBob thinks he's Squidward and thinks he can play the clarinet, but he can't play the clarinet. And the like realtor comes to the house, and she's like, I really don't want to hear you play that thing. And SpongeBob's like, hear loud and clear, ma'am. And it's like, it makes all this like nonsensical noise, but playing it like really loud and proud. And she's like, that was horrible. And SpongeBob's like, thank you, I'll play it again. And it's like, I would compare the sounds coming out of that clarinet in that episode to like some of our illustrious sounds. But
sorry,
yeah,
I was thinking more directly of the episode of the Band Geeks episode.
The Band Geeks episode,
because there's like a sequence in that where he's like, okay, when you speak loudly, people usually think you're smart, right? Then he's like, so if we just play really loudly, maybe everyone will think we sound good. Anyways, there's a whole bit about that, which is hysterical. But that's where I thought you were going with that. Sorry.
That's probably a better place to go with that.
Anyway, yes, it sounds like I had that theory. The other thing, again, just to underscore, and maybe we can then talk more about yours again, Laura, because not to dwell on the things that were terrible quite so much. But as I mentioned, we only had like 20, 25 people in our marching band.
Yeah.
And you're very limited in terms of what you can like make on the field formations wise with that few people. So again, like you were saying, Adam, of like mostly just porting the concert band onto a field, like that's largely what we did. And like we had a few different like charts that we tried to like learn and move through and stuff. And again, we were not great, but also even if we like did it perfectly, I'm not even sure if you could tell what it was supposed to be because we had so few people trying to make any sort of formation. Anyway, maybe, okay, actually that's a good question for both of you guys who have been in bands that have made formations well and like done good drill and stuff. Is there like one particular either like show or like set of formations or something that you were a part of on the field that like, or maybe Laura, especially if you're as a drum major, you can like see it a lot of times as the rest of the band is like making something like, oh, that's like really cool to be able to like visualize of people doing.
Yeah. So I do have one that comes to mind. This is when I was in college, and I was drum major in college as well as in high school. But I guess this was about the time that, do you remember that video game Angry Birds?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
And I think you could like slingshot a bird. Is that what it was? You'd slingshot a bird and like try to hit a certain object on the other side of the screen.
Yeah, exactly.
So
and
it was something that
pigs.
So you want to kill all the pigs. So it was something that you want to, like, you could do on like a touch screen phone, right? Even back then, right? It wasn't like something you use it like a, what is this? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, like the console thing? Like,
yeah, you don't use a console.
No.
Yeah, okay. So this was Angry Bird time, and this was one of our big rivaling, Clemson, our huge rival, South Carolina. And the marching band show that we did was Angry Birds, where a couple of the male cheerleaders dressed up in tiger like suits, like animals, like their mascot, Clemson's mascot. And our mascot, the Gamecock, who we called Cocky, would like run across the field like it was being flung across the field, and would like pounce on the tiger. And I just remember we played it so that way like you could see the slingshot like pulling back, and then he would run and then like jump on top of the tiger. And I just remember the crowd went wild. I don't think the Clemson fans liked it that much, but that was like a really nice, like, booster for, our fans. And that was really cool drill, I remember. So
yeah, that's awesome. And well, like an awesome concept, also well executed, it sounds like.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. That's like on the maybe I'm jumping ahead of ourselves now, but when I was in marching band, like Ohio State, I feel like was the show that like people would watch every week. I remember be like, "Whoa, you have Ohio State show," but they would do stuff like that. Like that sounds like Ohio State level kind of creativity and stuff. You mentioned, Laura, being a drum major, which is like, that's pretty super dope. Like you were a college drum major. Yeah, I remember when our mom and I think Aunt Tuffy went to see you play.
I remember that.
And they said like before they saw you, they heard someone like on the bus or something like via walkie-talkie say like, we get off the bus when Laura Zitelli tells us to get off the bus. Like you had
all that power.
You had a lot of power. But talk about that experience a little bit. What was it like being a drum major at the college level and maybe at the high school level as well?
Well, so the high school level, it was really fun. It was more about like learning they use a lot of like leadership type things in high school. At least that's how it was for us. So learning how to be a good leader and learning how to, just be a good example for everybody. And that was a fun experience. And, my friends were in the band, and the two other drum majors and I got to be pretty good friends in the band, and that was just a fun, just like a good wholesome experience in high school marching band. In college, it's a little bit more like go. You're just, because again, like what we've already talked about, you're learning a new show. At least we did. We learned a new show each week, and just things like that. And it's a little bit more of a stressful environment dealing with athletics, like, because they have their entire agenda and we're under that. And so dealing with them like during the game and when you're allowed to play tunes versus when you're not allowed to play tunes and things like that in the stands. But one of the big things, so I auditioned for drum major and was selected. And then after I was selected, I was told, me and my other friend, who was also selected as drum major, we were told that we were chosen to learn how to use a mace and like spin it and like do, you know, like pregame stuff on the field, because at that time the band was going through this transformation into being a little bit more PG rated instead of Animal House, kind of coming out of that phase. And they were doing like this whole just reconstruction of everything. So we went to this camp up in Illinois and had to learn how to sort of do it. And, you know, just one summer's worth of doing that and then like being thrown on the field trying to do it doesn't really, you know, you don't get a whole lot done. But we did what we could. And I am kind of proud of the fact that I was the, you know, the first to do it. And like the new, you know, like that new, like the reforming of the band, I got to have like be the first one to do it and have like a kind of a say in a couple things, not very much. The people that do it now, they're really good. I mean, they know, like, it's probably part of the audition, so they know it's coming and they know they have to learn it and have some background with it. But I don't think either one of us, I'm sure Ben won't mind me saying this, my other friend who is a drum major, I don't think either one of us were super stellar at that at all. But it was part of just
you led the way.
You're a trailblazer.
You exactly. You go with the flow, right? They told us to do it. Yeah. You go with the flow. They told us to do it, and we said okay. So, yeah.
Dude. Pretty cool. Yeah, that's like a whole nother level of drum majoring, because like our drum majors at WVU, they like ran the field during pregame, this like cool little high five thing, like salute thing or whatever, but then they were like up in the stand, or like on their stand thing, directing most of the game. But like I've seen several marching bands that it's like being a drum major is like a whole nother like there's almost like a drum major performance like as the salute before the rest of the pregame thing. Like that's, and oftentimes a mace is a part of that, so it's like a cool extra wrinkle there. Before I go on, I will say I appreciate you, Laura, saying not to call out any band. Didn't mean to call out when I was talking about experiences any particular band. And I will say, I'm sorry, it's been on my mind since I said this. Like, I kind of want, like, not that again, talking about like West Virginia, Maryland, going both ways there, you know, didn't mean in any way to call out Maryland or West Virginia or any band in particular. I also would say that like I kind of, like I said, there are like jerk fans for every team, but I think it's kind of cool that both those experiences happened, and I think it's not coincidental that it happened West Virginia, Maryland, and it wasn't like West Virginia, Oklahoma, or West Virginia, you know, I don't know, Boston College or whatever, because like, no, that like is kind of a rivalry. I think that is a cool part of college sports. Like you were talking about the South Carolina Clemson thing. Like, I kind of want there to be some animosity there between those two teams. Same thing like Maryland, also like Pitt, way more than Maryland, Virginia Tech, way more. Like I would expect there to be some like healthy amounts of animosity. Now, you know, if people are like talking crap on other people going outside the stadium, that's not cool. But I do think that's like a cool part of college sports, is like there is maybe there's a dark side to it. There's people that like take it too far, but there's a healthy, maybe not healthy, I don't know. I it's an enjoyable amount of like rivalry, which I do enjoy. Also, I know John and I were both, and John, you did well to not mention this school. Of course, I was like, Bishop Walsh High School. I also did in no mean way to call out Bishop Walsh High School. It's a fantastic school. Go BW. I'm so thankful I got to go there. So thankful my parents sent me there. Also really thankful for the people who put their effort into the band program there, regardless of the talent level of the people who were involved in that band, such as myself. But yeah, definitely in no way
for sure
unappreciative of of that experience. And especially now I'm thinking like at the time I do remember. In fact, I think that's part of the reason I did band in college. Like I remember sitting in the back of band thinking like just very frustrated that like people couldn't count, being like, man, this should be more fun than it is. Like, can we just play together maybe? And so I think that's part of the reason I wanted to do band in college, because like, okay, I want to like keep doing this music thing and do it with like to a point that it's like we can actually make music and I can be like, whoa, that was music, that was cool. But you know, that being said, now I look back on that and being like, man, I was so glad I was part of that, you know, as maybe unmusical as it was. Like, if for nothing else, man, that's like you talking about your band experience, John. And yeah, me thinking about being in the back of that band with people that played their entire songs in the first position on trombone. Like, that's a story, if nothing else. Like,
Yeah.
It's hard to think about that and not just like, that brings me joy now. Like, that was a time. That was hilarious, you know?
Yeah.
Like, man, good times. Not musical times,
Indeed.
but good times.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll second that.
Well,
Anyway.
yeah, maybe we've highlighted a few moments that were less than musically amazing in our lives, albeit amazing in other ways. But I thought maybe we wanted to, before I close out here, highlight some particular bands that we might be impressed with in our comings and goings in the forays of the musical world. Great, Laura, do you want to start us off?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, you've already said Ohio State. I remember seeing a YouTube video. I didn't see this in person, but I think there was like they made like someone on a skateboard on the field, and you could like see the skateboard moving, and it looked like an actual like animation. You know, it looked like you were watching it on the computer. They're really, I think they've always been really, really good. And I've also really enjoyed watching, you know, to tie this back into what we were talking about earlier, the University of Illinois. So yeah, I think that's, you know, those two are some of the, like, those are like the examples in my mind of what a college marching band should look like and sound like and everything. So yeah.
Super cool.
I'll say I'm not much of an aficionado of like watching a wide variety of marching band clips like on YouTube. But one thing that like other people who also don't really care about marching band like have shared with me in the past, there's like one show that Ohio State did of like video game music. And which I do really like video game music, and I think a lot of music in video game, and there are a lot of people who are passionate about it and like can be really good. But that one in particular epitomized, I think, a lot of what you're saying too, because there's a section in that which I didn't realize until more recently. They've made a horse and then like moved it across the field for a portion, and like had the horse's legs like making a like running motion. And like when you like, it kind of washed over me the first time. I was like, oh cool, there's a horse running across the field. And I was like, wait, they have to march to do that. And then like watching the people who are marching like within the legs of the horse and like how choreographed and precise that had been, like, oh dang, like that's really impressive. Like understanding a bit of what has to go into that. So anyway, to give an example of what you're talking about. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, Ohio State, man, in preparing for like what band am I going to highlight, like I said, when I was in college, like everyone watched Ohio State and was like, dude, Ohio State shit, like everyone talked about that. And I think like in preparing for this, I was like, all right, let's really look at, you know, like what is the best band here. And in all my videos I watched, I think it's Ohio State. Like, I think the easy answer is Ohio State. They're amazing. Like, but for the sake of like not going with the easy answer, I thought I'd challenge myself to go outside of Ohio State. I will also say that in my 4 years of college marching band, I was pretty blessed, I'll say, to have been exposed to many really good marching bands, I think, besides, well, not to say West Virginia is amazing. I think we're pretty amazing. I like West Virginia
pretty darn awesome. Yeah.
Simple Gifts, pretty special. But yeah, there are a lot of other bands that we got to see and experience. And as a maybe other to add on to my story of the West Virginia, Maryland experience, my junior year, kind of a debacle. As this story is coming back, I remember that we were originally supposed to perform at that game, and that then it was like way late in the week. It was like, oh, actually, we're not going to be able to. And that was like kind of a big stink. Like a lot of people were like not happy about that. And then of course the game happened. It was like complete blowout, annihilation, whatever. I remember that being a thing. But the next year, the game was also at Maryland. I forget how this worked out, but we played at Maryland 2 years in a row. So, and that year it was in College Park at the campus. But not only did we go to that game, but we did a performance with the Maryland band, and we practiced with them before the game. We got there like, I remember leaving like insanely early from Morgantown to get to College Park pretty early before like a noon kickoff to do this like long, and the band practiced like a separate practice field. They didn't practice in Bird Stadium, but we practiced with them, and we had like kind of rehearsed our part of the show and said like, hey, this is where the Maryland band will be. We performed with Maryland. But I remember the Maryland band being incredibly hospitable and amazing and like super pumped we were there, like, yay, you're here, woo. And their band director being like super, super cool. And as part of this whole thing, I remember thinking like, oh, okay, I think I kind of heard through grapevine, like it was not the band that decided we were not going to play the year before. I think it was more like an athletic department decision.
Yeah.
But to the Maryland marching band's credit, that was, I remember really being struck how cool their marching band was and their music program. And like, yeah, go shout out Amy and Adam. You have a cool music program there at the University of Maryland. So I was really impressed by that. So anyway, point is Maryland, one of those marching bands that got to see and witness, was pretty amazing. It was not often that we went to a visiting stadium and were the smaller of the bands. We had a pretty awesomely large marching band, but James Madison had a band that was way bigger than ours. We were outnumbered pretty easily by James Madison. We played with them at FedEx Field, as I recall. They're pretty good. They won the Sudler Trophy. The LSU band, we didn't see the whole band, but they came to Morgantown. They brought like a small contingent of their band. I remember they're highly regarded and they were really good players. We went to Oklahoma. I got to see Oklahoma's marching band, which is pretty cool. But I think the band I'm going to select to highlight as being pretty cool was actually the last college football game I ever got to play at, was the Liberty Bowl in 2014 in Memphis. We played Texas A&M, and Texas A&M brought obviously their band there, also a very large band, and very different. So we just like the look of them, like wearing these like, capes, and like we had this like sash thing and the white plume, the helmet, whatever. And Texas A&M is a military band. They have like these grayish green military uniforms. And, we do our pregame show and we have these like concentric opening circle things, part of like the Simple Gifts, kind of the thing in WV's pregame. And Texas A&M was like straight line marching, very much more militaristic looking, like regimented. I remember before, they have all these, different bowl game stuff going on beforehand. They had a pep rally, which they do at most of these bowl games. And so this is like a day or two before the game, and where the bands are both there. And there's a part in, I don't know if it's the fight song or whatever, this thing that Texas A&M plays all the time, but they do this cheer and they say, "Beat the hell out of West Virginia," or insert whatever band they're playing there. And I remember being like, okay, I don't like these guys very much, come on. But watching their show, it was really freaking cool. They, in terms of what they do with straight line marching, they do a lot of really impressive, just visually appealing, intriguing kind of formations. They do these like turns where they're like in these lines right next to each other, and they're turning at different times to like make these different, like, I don't know, almost like serpentine movements on the field. It's really mesmerizing and just very unique, I'd say. Like, I never saw a marching band march like that before. So I was super impressed with the Texas A&M marching band. And yeah, I was watching videos of different Texas A&M performances, and I think I stand by that they're pretty unique, cool band. I would highlight. I was also reading just a little bit about them, and they all live in the same dorm. Like, if you're in the Texas A&M marching band, you live together, you like eat together. It's like kind of like its own little sect of Texas A&M, which is kind of cool, kind of unique. For what it's worth, also that game, they did beat the hell out of West Virginia. That was quite a beatdown.
I was gonna say that's
2014 as well. Good old Skylar Howard days.
Yeah. I've personally, I've never actually seen the Texas A&M band perform. I can't get over the uniforms, the like militaristic gray. I know they're very highly regarded, and like I'm sure they're very good. It's just like, I feel like I want to see, in a marching band context specifically, like a more entertaining type of, like something that's, again, and also I haven't seen it, so I assume that it is very entertaining, like as a show, but just like the vibe that I get from the like uniform when you first arrive, I think it's unique, but not what I want personally.
Yeah, that's fair. It is quite different.
Well, yeah. I think that Texas A&M, the people who are like the students who are in the marching band, they are actual cadets. So you
yeah, that's my understanding.
Like a student is that it is. So you have to be like on the military side of things, I think, to be in the band.
That checks out.
Yeah.
So that's why they have like, those uniforms.
Yeah, like a strong, I don't know if it's technically ROTC or like similar, like military connection at Texas A&M. Yeah. Indeed.
Great.
Wow. I took a slightly different tact in this than you guys did. In terms of like musical performance and like ability and everything, I think you've highlighted good bands. Again, I was saying about Texas A&M, I don't want to be rude in that way, and like you're saying, I'm sure they're really good both musically and like performance wise. It's probably more of a taste thing that I'm trying to express. Similarly, I want to highlight a band that is a standout in a very different way than I think the bands that you've been talking about are standouts. And that is the Leland Stanford Junior University Marching Band, which is the marching band of Stanford.
Nice.
Which probably most famous for the game against Cal, taking the field prematurely and leading to the loss of the football game.
The band is on the field.
Yeah, which is pretty amazing just in and of itself as a historical event.
Yes.
But they are, and have been since like the 60s, a student-led marching band. They have a director again now that apparently is like meant to be a position to like intermediate between the band and like the school administration, rather than like necessarily running the band and like making all of their decisions about stuff. But anyways, this is a very different style of marching band, one that I was not really exposed to until I went to college, because our marching band is like really small and also just kind of tried to do the same sort of style. But so if you watch a like halftime show of the Leland Stanford Junior University Marching Band, the like general format is they'll have like a PA announcer who comes on and will say like something satirical and like usually kind of like snarky or like jokey, and and they're usually all like directed at the other team. So like I watched, for example, the Tostitos Fiesta Bowl when Stanford was playing Oklahoma. And so they were talking about various things about Oklahoma, and they were like making jokes about like the musical Oklahoma. And then like the one thing they were saying, they're like, we noticed that the first 3 lines of the musical are all about how windy it is in Oklahoma. So we're like, that's weird. Like it must be really windy there. And then they like pick some song, but then their band will just like spell out a word on the field. Like it's not very visually stimulating, I guess. But just that like vibe. And then their like very satirical approach to things, which has gotten them in trouble in the past. Particularly of note, I read that in the 90s, I think, they did a show at Oregon that there was like some controversy about logging, I guess, in the area, and their show made like a sort of statement about it. And then afterwards, the governor of the state of Oregon attempted to ban the Stanford marching band from the state. But then like later people decided that he didn't have like the legal authority to do that.
Amazing.
Anyway, but the whole like vibe around it, and it's not something that you see very frequently at all. I just think it's very like comical, and like I enjoy it. Again, not like the most musically impressive per se, or like, and again with like they're not regimented at all. Like I think you can do a lot more impressive things when you have like a structured marching band and you're like, hey, we're gonna, you know, run this drill and like do this interesting thing and like have people practice or whatever. But then you have this polar opposite side where like, you know, half of the band members aren't in like a uniform and like will wear a banana costume, or like the Stanford tree. I'm pretty sure that the like tree being an unofficial mascot, like has most of its roots with like the marching band. And typically whenever they perform, that like tree mascot will be like running around on the field as they like perform. Not in any way that looks to be all that synchronized per se. But anyway, this was like, again, I didn't even know this was a thing that marching bands do until I went to one of our Dartmouth football games. And our band, which again is like pretty small, but like is also student led, like kind of did that sort of thing. I was like, oh, this is interesting. Very different. I think it can be hit or miss if the like script that they're reading is not quite so like funny. Then it kind of, the whole setup sort of gets defeated, I guess. But very unique and pretty fun in my view. So yeah, so I wanted to highlight them for that.
A worthy highlight.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad you chose Stanford. Yeah.
So there's also I found this, which was kind of fun too, and like you're talking about, Adam, with like some rivalry things, that the USC marching band now has like a thing that's somewhat of a tradition that they did because they like, you know, don't like Stanford, but I think Stanford's like band in particular, right, like poking fun at USC, they like sort of responded where they have this like thing that they do. I think, what is it called? The counter march, where they like have a very like straight line, like simple march with kind of this like sort of whoop-a-doop-a-doo, like not lazy, but kind of like, you know, just like airy sort of tune that they play. Then like as they're doing it, it like slowly devolves where like chunks of their band will start like breaking off and like not marching and like doing a like very wacky thing, until eventually the whole band is like doing this like wacky thing instead of, and it's like it switches back and forth as they go, which is very funny, but which was meant to be like making fun of Stanford's marching band for being like what they are. So I thought that was also fun too, and plays into the rivalry thing you were talking about.
For sure.
So
Jolly good phone.
yeah,
Kind of reminds me of the.
could be fun. You guys should look it up if you haven't seen it before. Just
Yeah, I think I will.
with the context.
I will do it.
So
Do you call it the? Do you remember those videos? The Harlem. Was it the Harlem Shake?
yes,
The Harlem.
yeah,
for some
it's a
reason,
little
that-
Harlem Shaky, I guess.
Yeah.
I think it predates the Harlem Shake though, which is fun.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, fun band memories, everyone. Once again, super congratulations, Laura. Super glad we got to do this, and I think the marching band was a super worthy topic. It's a lot of fun. Learned a lot. Got to highlight a lot of bands. Got to work through a lot of wonderful memories in the musical world. Before we get off here, we want to ask you one final question, Laura. We oftentimes ask guests on the show, why is sports important? But I thought maybe I'd flip that around a little bit and ask you, why is music important?
Oh my goodness. That's a really hard question to answer, but music speaks when words can't. So you can communicate so many thoughts and feelings through music that I certainly can't through words. It's the soundtrack of life. Whether you're just listening to the radio or you're at the symphony or whatever noise is going on in the background, it's just, in my world, it's a huge part of my life. And I think people who enjoy it and appreciate it, I just think they're better people because of that, of consuming that, art form. So yeah, it's important.
Well said.
Wow.
Music speaks when words don't. I like that. I like that. I can remember that. Well, super cool. And what could be better? Music, sports coming together. The ultimate. Wow.
The ultimate
super cool.
indeed.
The ultimate. What could be better? Well, super cool. Well, happy podcasting, Laura, John. This is really fun.
Once again,
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
2021-22 Rossi Brothers Bowl Bash extravaganza champion Laura Zitelli.
Yeah.
Yes. Thanks for having me on. This
rousing
was
applause.
so fun. Yeah.
See if you repeat next year. It should be the first ever repeat winner. Nobody has ever repeated in the history of the Rossi Brothers Bowl Bash. So,
well, we'll see.
There are records to be set.
Exactly. The opportunities are almost endless. Super cool.
Sounds good.
Super cool. Well,
all right.
Until next time.
Yeah.
From the Rockies of Colorado to the Banks of Missouri. Thanks to all our listeners from points in between and not in between. Until next time, he's John and I'm Adam. Stay classy, Frostburg.